which had gone beyond religion. Religion didn't exist, I might add, in the 28th century. It was almost non-existent in 2137.
What did they think of God, or what was their concept of God?
They did think of a supreme being, but they thought of it in a very different sense than most religions do today. Most religions today take a very narrow view of the punishing God and the rewarding God, and you do what he says, everything's fine. If you don't, he'll punish you. That's long gone in terms of their outlook. It's considered a supreme being that it is very difficult to get to know, that is beyond all of us in terms of awareness and understanding, but the God, learns through communicating through us and contacting us and being part of our experience, that we are part of God just as God is part of us, and it's a two-way street type thing. It's a reciprocal arrangement, if you will. And that God is beyond the physical universe as we know it, but maintains contact with the physical universe through us. And that was apparently their attitude and their religion. And you can find that information today in the network, in the net, and so forth under the name of the Wingmakers, because that is what they call themselves. And according to what has turned up in current time, and I remember what they told me, they had made stashes all over the earth in about the 8th century A.D., which had been uncovered in the 20th century and into the 21st century. 3 have been recovered so far, one in New Mexico, which was the first one.
Well, stashes of what, though?
Of their literature, of their science, of their...
This is the Wingmakers you're talking about?
This is a buried underground, what would you call them? Time capsules, perhaps, is what would be the best thing they were, to show what their art and there was that they had, their music, their technology, and whether or not there was a warning involved, that's hard to say, because it fell immediately in the first site with the Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, fell immediately under the control of NSA.
So are you saying that these engineers, these computer software engineers...
they're human engineers as well, and genetic engineers initially.
Okay, are you saying that they were actually a byproduct of the Wingmakers?
They were the Wingmakers.
They were the Wingmakers, okay. And the Wingmakers then are alive and well today?
They're alive and well today in the 28th century. They can apparently travel to this era, but they're not living per se in this era, meaning the 20th century, 21st century. But they built these stashes, and one of them was found in 1983 approximately in Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. On the surface, there was an Indian mound and an Indian burial site, which, according to all of the geologists and archaeologists who looked at it, fitted the 8th century A.D. Everything fitted except they found one artifact in there that didn't fit at all, and that's what brought in NSA. There was a compass. Indians didn't have compasses. So NSA came in, then they thought this might be an alien stash, so they put in the ACIO, which is Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, a super secret group within NSA, with a certain secret group within that. And they couldn't find anything more than the compass, so 11 years later, they buried the thing, covered it over. I don't mean buried it physically in terms of rubble. They buried it in terms of an invisibility shield, and they totally hid the site. And about 1994, there's a earthquake in the area. Canyon wall comes down, and they find, after that they went back to check it, and they found there was an entrance into an underground cavern system with a spiral staircase carved in the solid rock and a series of 23 rooms. And this information, of course, has been made available because one of the head archaeologists involved with it decided the government had no right to keep this secret. So we put it out on the net. Whether he's still alive or not, we don't know, but they didn't get all the information out.
Do you know who he was?
Only by his code name, is Dr. Alexander. That's not his real name.
Okay.
And he held a level 12 clearance in the current terminology of this century's clearance levels in the U.S. government. There's up to a level 15 and beyond probably. But at 15 was a director who was only known by the number 15. Nobody called him by his name, but he was part of the ACIO operation, and Alexander broke his, so we say, his oath of secrecy in bringing the information out and getting it put on the net. But he had to crack codes of what they found in the 23rd room, and that was an optical disc. Standard type like we know today, except they couldn't break the code. And NSA has some pretty damn good code breakers. And there are some very good code breakers in the government. None of them could break it. Anderson went to work on it. It took him a year and a half. He knew something like 20 languages, including ancient Sanskrit.
Did you actually know this individual, Mr.
No.
Alexander?
No. I've
Okay,
never
so
met
this
him.
is secondhand knowledge.
This
then.
is based off of the manuscripts taken off the network and the interviews of him by the one woman who put this whole manuscript on the internet.
All right, this is about the internet. Okay,
Right.
I'm trying to tie this story that you're telling right now back to.
Well, I'll tie that
27.
together.
Okay.
And the information was buried at this time and era, and according to the interviews, of which 2 were on the net, they built 7 of these stashes around the planet about the 8th century A.D., with the intent that they be found at some time in the future when the technology caught up with what they had accomplished and done in the way of hiding sites and burying them, and recognizing certain key things like that compass that didn't belong with the Indian stash. So, ACI got into it. They finally realized when they broke the code on the optical disc, which gave the whole history, gave us a lot of the science and technology, which apparently was not released on the net, that this was not somebody from outside. This was a group of time travelers out of the future. And they put this stash, and that's what they said on the optical disc. We did this here. The art is strange. If you see any of their work in the manuals, I can show you a manual, but I don't need to put it in this collection because it is available on the net still, so far as I know. If it turns out it's not available, we can add it to this. But their purpose, they stated, was to guide humanity through some very rough periods. And apparently their desire at this time, and having this stash, and now 3 uncovered, I wish to say there's 4 more, to be uncovered essentially at the tail end of the 20th century was the fact that we face a very major crisis in human history right about this time. And this is, of course, whether we go down the road of total blatant government control, a total dictatorship, or whether we retain, as in the U.S. and the Western nations, whether we retain a institution which is really called a constitutional republic, not a democracy. And many of the nations of Europe also retain their republic status, or whether they go back to a monarchy system, or whether they go back to something worse. There is you might say, a saddle point right at this time, at the beginning of the 21st century. Which way is humanity going to go? And that's one of the reasons the stashes were placed where we found at this time. And they're realizing that there must be communication back to this era, and there must be some kind of guidance to get humanity through a very rough period. Because they face the possibility that, because time is not frozen in a celluloid strip which is unchangeable, the whole thing throughout the entire loop, which is a time loop, is, shall we say, malleable. It is plastic. It can be reshaped. It can be changed. The past is essentially fixed. In terms of us, what is our past is essentially fixed, but it's not entirely true. It can be re-engineered and has been.
But are they coming back to make their actual present time better? Is that their goal?
Their goal is to straighten, as I understand it, and trying to put this together myself, their goal is to try and straighten out some of the problems they realize they now have in the future, because in the year 3000 AD on, apparently there's no life on the planet. 6037 AD is dead. There's no life. And this, of course, is something which is not a desirable outcome for humanity.
Okay, so they're still there in the 28th century,
Yeah.
but what they're seeing is that year 3000, or somewhere around there, life is dead.
Someplace around there, they're
Okay.
dead, whether it's because of an alien invasion or because of a collapse of our society due to...
But don't they have the ability to time travel in the future? Obviously, they
I'm
can
sure
go
they do.
in the past, so they should know what happened then.
That's one of the reasons why I believe they're coming back to the present, or will be coming back to the present, and one of the reasons why their stashes are being uncovered at this time.
Right. So this must be a real pivotal point.
It is a very pivotal point.
The year 2000.
10 years